Okay, hello and welcome to Radical Change, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. I am Vonda Page. I'm your host, and I'm here to share my journey from a lifetime of toxic, narcissistic, abusive relationships and societal narcissism to a place of healing and empowerment. Each week, I'm going to dive into my personal experiences. I'm going to explore the characteristics of narcissistic personalities, and we're going to talk about practical strategies for overcoming and transforming these traumatic experiences into transformational learnings that you then take into your next journey. So I want you to remember that healing is a process and you don't have to do it alone. So welcome, welcome, welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about family ties and we're going to talk about narcissistic patterns in my own family of origin. And I'm going to talk about things that I noticed as a kid, things that I noticed as a teenager, things that I noticed as a 20 something and even early 30 something, but I couldn't put it together. We are not given the language of narcissistic personality disorder. We're not given the language of borderline personality disorder. We're not given the language of personality disorders in general. And I think the reason is because our society is one that is permeated and built upon violence, and that violence is verbal, sexual, physical, emotional, and psychological. And we're all so used to receiving such violence all the time that we have normalized it. Violence has become commonplace, and the acquiescence and the acceptance of that violence has become something that is just natural to us. For me, it was never natural. I was always fighting back. I was always getting my ass beat. I was always getting cussed out and beat and tore up for fighting for myself, for explaining that what you are doing to me is wrong, for sticking up for myself. And now I recognize that these narcissistic patterns in my family of origin, they number one replicate the narcissistic patterns in our society, and number two, that the narcissistic patterns were predictable, controllable patterns, right? Where these people endeavor to control me with violence, with gaslighting, with triangulation, with mirroring, with all of these different things that, like, now, once I know it and once I see it, I will never unsee it. And I will be able to help other people see it. I will be able to help other people really like break down and understand what is going on so that they are not the victim of this narcissistic abuse. Now, I am going to say that it's not going to be easy. It's not like it's some simple thing because most of us have been conditioned into accepting narcissistic abuse. Most of us have been conditioned into dealing with it. And the bottom line is that we don't have to. But we've been conditioned to believe that this is the way it is. So, with that being said, I wanted to say thank you and welcome to Managing Our Own Radical Change. Welcome to From Trauma to Transformation. Here's where we're going to delve into the journey from trauma to personal empowerment. We're going from trauma to personal empowerment. And I'm your host, Vonda Page. I am a radical change leadership coach. I am a consultant. I'm a survivor of narcissistic abuse. And in this series, I share my personal experiences and insights demonstrating how to break free from the constraints of narcissistic abuse. And I am excited to explore personal stories and actionable strategies that will help you bring forth your own radical change. So today, right, we're getting into family ties and we're getting into the narcissistic patterns that we have in our own lives and in our family of origin. And my hope is that at the end of this episode that you are able to examine your own patterns in your own family of origin so that you are able to assess for yourself that you are able to assess for yourself who you want to be and what is that gap between who you want to be and how you're showing up. And the thing that when it comes to like unpacking narcissistic abuse, it's really so many factors. And one of the factors is really about that acknowledgement and that acceptance piece. That acknowledgement of, yeah, I went through some fuck shit, and there's a radical acceptance piece that is, I couldn't do anything about it. I didn't have the power. I didn't have the control. I had limited resources. I did the best I could at the time with what I had. And this is what it looks like. This is how it shows up. This is what it means. This is what's up. And all I can do is take what I have, and I can do what I can in the meantime. There's nothing else there. We get saddled down with this viewpoint, with this perspective, like, oh, we supposed to prevent every bad thing that happens to us. We supposed to be able to do it, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, like, what it boils down to is that we are all conditioned, we are all programmed, we are all brainwashed to believe and think and do certain things. Period. We're believed into our thinking. We are believed into our speaking. We are believed into our feeling, and we are believed into our actions. And unfortunately, there is a lot of circumstance and situation where if we had more control, will we take it? Yeah. If we had the ability to do some different shit, will we do it? Yeah. However, not only our imaginations, but also the constraints that have been defined in capitalism, they keep us fucked up, and we can only do but so much. Period. In the story, we can only do but so much. Even though we can only do but so much, right? That so much we can only do has a lot of power on not only how we think, but on the things that we actually do, right? The things that we actually do, right? And like, I want to think about do in two different ways, right? We think about do as, like the things that we do, but then I want to also think about do in the terms of fecal matter. I want to think about do in the terms of shit and bullshit. And what are the things that, we end up acquiescing to? What are the things that we end up doing that are really bullshit, that do not benefit us? Okay, maybe they benefit the status quo. Maybe they benefit the powers that be. But do they benefit us? Well, I want to surmise or propose to you, or suppose to you, that most of the things that we get sold do not benefit us. That most of the things that we get sold are harmful to us. That most of the things that we get sold are to benefit the billionaires. But because we don't have the time for CLT, critical thought leadership, we don't got the time for CLT. What we do have the time for is to get used and abused and mistreated and manipulated by big business. And big business is the arm of the government. Big business pays our government to allow things to happen to us. And until we get that under our belt, until we understand the Electoral College, until we understand the Constitution of the United States, everything else is just bullshit. It's just shit that's harming us. It's just shit that's hurting us. And what we haven't recognized and realized is that we have way more power than we imagine. But because we won't use that power collectively, we kind of fucked. We have bought into what they have told us is the shit that work, and we just running with it. We just running with it. And the sad part, right, is that we don't recognize how much power that we all actually have. We don't recognize that we can do amazing shit with our current resources. And they know we don't know. And so anybody like a me, or anybody who's going to come and say, here's how you take what you have and use it, the algorithm going to be fighting back. So this is why it's up to all of us individually to pursue and manage our own radical change. It's up to us. It is up to us to pursue and manage our own radical change.
Pursuing and managing your own radical change is going to look it's going to look different for every person. Pursuing and managing your own radical change is going to look different for every person. Pursuing and managing your own radical change, it's going to look different for every person. And the reason it's going to look different for every person is because every person has a very particular mindset. Every person has a particular message. Every person has a particular mood, and every person has a particular movement. And whether it's your message, your mindset, your mood, or your movement, those are the things that's going to dictate how you're going to show up in this world and what you're going to do. Those are the things that's going to dictate how you're going to manage your own radical change. Those are the things that's going to dictate what you end up doing and not doing. Those are the things that's going to dictate whether you get success or not. Success. What is success? Success is different for every person. Success for you as an individual person, success depends on what you believe your success to be. Success for me is having an amazing relationship with the people who matter most in my life. Period. Success is being able to outfox, out navigate capitalism's intent for me. How do I navigate capitalism's intent for me? How do I navigate it? Well, I navigate capitalism's intent for me by breaking the bounds and the boundaries of anything that capitalism says this is what black women are supposed to have. So capitalism says all black women are supposed to do is sacrifice themselves and their kids on the altar of capitalism. And I say, fuck no. Maybe I have done it at different times, but I'm not doing it now. Because not only am I going to figure out how to navigate this thing so that I remain less harmed, but I'm going to teach my generations and all my future generations the same thing. If I teach my generations and future generations the same shit, and we get to a point where we really know how to navigate capitalism, y'all can't mess with us. Black people are enslaved because of capitalism. Black people are less human because of capitalism. And what I know, and what a lot of people know, is that that shit is all in your mind. Because even if your body is on a plantation, digital or physical, your mind can be free. Your mind can be free because that part is a decision. Now, if you are depressed and you got some deep shit going on because of whatever, listen, that's another story. That's another situation. I have learned more recently about depression and what that is actually like on a day to day. And my God, I never knew. I ain't know. But guess what? They ain't want me to know. They ain't want nobody to know, right? And they want people with depression to think they crazy. They want people with depression to just kill themselves. They want people with depression to give up because the world says give up. The world says die. The world says if you can't handle it, then you need to motherfucking die. The world says if you can't become a billionaire, then you need to die. And none of that's true because it is actually set up so that we have the 34 billionaires that we have and nobody else ever gets to be one. 1,200 new millionaires are created each year, but I don't know how many are lost because I haven't researched it. But if 1,200 new millionaires are created, right, the millionaires don't rise to be multimillionaires and billionaires. It doesn't work like that. The billionaire class is a very small class. The billionaire class is a global group of elite people who have said, fuck the rest of y'all. We don't give a fuck. We gonna protect pedophiles, rapists, and everybody else so that we can have our little piece of the what's up. And if you don't like it, if you ain't with this program, you don't rock with this, we don't give a fuck. We'll gas you or jail you or beat you or shoot you. Period. End of story. Period. End of story. So what we get to do, right, is we get to decide How are we going to deal with that? So for me, right, it goes back to understanding these very roots of narcissistic abuse. My grandfather was a fucking narcissist. And I remember my aunt told me the story about my grandfather pulling a GUN on my grandmother, and my mom and her sisters begging my grandfather to not uh end my grandmother's life. That had to be some kind of horrible shit for people to remember, to reconstruct, and to not heal from. So it's not like I'm saying that all of our trauma, all of our bullshit, all of our pain doesn't have roots that make sense. But what I'm saying is that we get the opportunity to heal our shit. And as Black women, if we come into the world saying we have a company, we have this, we can be a coach, we can be a consultant, we can be a counselor, we can be a therapist, we can be a teacher, we could be an empath, we could be a healer, we could be an influencer, we full of shit if we haven't done the work of healing. Period. End of story. I created Black Women X, Black Women Exclusive. I created that in 2022 to really bring together Black women who really wanted to, who have the self-awareness, who wanted to heal. And to be honest, I struggled to get it off the ground because Black women won't do the work of healing. I wasn't really doing the real work. And the real work is admitting that I came from a fucked up family full of a bunch of fucked up shit that created a bunch of shit in me, that some of it I executed on my daughter, some of it I executed on myself. Some of it is just stored and trapped inside of my body that I gotta let go. Yeah, maybe some of it I got rid of with ayahuasca and Temazcal and San Pedro and all of these different like healing things and these different therapies and mushroom tea and blah 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 blah, right? And I still have a bunch of shit that I haven't dealt with. I haven't dealt with my mom didn't like me, right? My aunts didn't like me. My cousins didn't like me. My so-called friends in high school, they didn't fucking like me. My dad didn't like my mom, and he definitely ain't like me, right? My ex-husband didn't like me. He ain't like my daughter, right? Like haven't dealt with that. These things are painful things, and we don't deal with them because they're painful. We haven't been taught how to metabolize pain. We haven't been taught how to deal with pain. We haven't been taught how to heal from this horrible shit. If we are a woman or a girl, we haven't been taught how do you heal from these betrayals by your father or brother, people who's supposed to love you. They shouldn't be having sex with you, but they harmed you in that way. We haven't been given nothing to get through this. But my services, my programs, my one-on-ones, listen, we're going to break that shit down and we're going to get to it. You have to want to do the work. The work's not easy. What does the work entail? The work entails some tears. Absolutely, you're going to cry through the shit. The work entails some advice and some things you might not want to hear. I'm going to tell you, if you're in a relationship with anybody that's actively harm you, I'm going to tell you to get the fuck out. Worse than get out. Worse than anything. I'm going to tell you to get out. I'm going to tell you, do not be in a relationship with people that harm you for any length of time. And now, I've been a person who, I haven't been in no harmful relationships except for with my mother, no more than 2 years. I don't fuck around. I obviously, my internal soul has a threshold of 200 years, of 2 years, 2 years. Maybe that's 200 weeks, right? My threshold is 200 weeks. I can't fuck around after that because I'm not going to let myself be harmed. I'm not going to let myself be hurt. I'm not going to be going through these emotional, physical, psychological. I'm not going to be going through that shit on no long period of time. Now, that's not saying I don't love you, I don't care about you, I'm not deeply invested. But what I'm saying is what I have built up inside of me doesn't let it go. Now, when it came to my mom, that relationship that I had with my mother, what is this? What is this? That relationship that I had with my mom, that relationship lasted until 2023. Technically, it lasted until 2018. We was no contact from 2018 to 2023. He reached out. We had a 2-minute conversation, something like that. It wasn't long. We had a conversation, and the conversation we had got us to a certain point. And the conversation that we had that got us to a certain point is the exact same conversation that got us to the point that I will never fucking talk to her again. Like, never. Now, a couple of caveats. My mom has dementia, and she's had dementia probably since around 2006, 2005, even 2004. Her husband died in 2005 or 2003 or something like that, and maybe my grandfather then died in 2005. So I think her husband died in 2003. I know my daughter was a baby, blah, blah, blah. But what it boils down to is that over the past 5 years, right, I went into that kind of like permanent no contact kind of situation with my mom. I thought we had that, but then she reached out, and now, like, after now what I understand about narcissistic abuse and narcissistic supply and all the other whatever, I will never talk to anybody from my past unless they are willing to like apologize and do the whole thing. If the people ain't willing to apologize and then do the work of change, I won't fuck with them literally ever again. Not for 5 minutes, not for 5 seconds, not for 2 seconds, period. If people aren't willing to like evolve and change and really be serious about making a radical change, and I won't fuck with them, not even a teeny tiny smidge of a little bit. Like literally, not today, not tomorrow, and not ever. It's like fuck you today, fuck you tomorrow, and fuck you to ever, fuck you forever, right? Think about what was his name, George, whatever, segregationist. He said segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Fuck you today, fuck you tomorrow, fuck you forever. And that's how I'm gonna go. That's how I'm gonna be. And I don't got nothing else for you. Now, is there a possibility that whatever, you had to come to me so humble, you had to come to me so respectful, you had to come to me so like, oh hey, boom boom boom, that it would be a whole nother level. Otherwise I would never ever fuck with you. Not for 5 minutes, not for 5 seconds, not for nothing in the entire world today, tomorrow, or whenever. Like, and for a lot of people, it's hard to really reconcile that, right? A lot of people cannot imagine, how do you cut people out of your life that have been in your life forever? How do you cut people out of your life that you think, is going to be there to be your savior when you finally run out of money? How do you like cut people out of your life who you have looked at and given this level of respect or deference, and basically what you realize is they've been holding some bullshit over your head that you never really expected them to give you anyway, but because they gaslit you and triangulated you and mirrored you and did all these things to manipulate you into believing that they was a real and genuine person, it is what it is. And now you at a point where you get to decide for yourself, what do you want to do to move forward? How are you going to address your life? How are you going to address the people in your life that have harmed you? Are you just going to sit by and let them keep on doing it? Or are you going to move yourself from that space so that you're at least in the space where you're not getting harmed by the same people with the same bullshit over and over? Are you going to move into a space where you listen to yourself, you listen to your own mindset, you listen to your own message, you listen to your own experiences, you use your own insight, and you say, no, this motherfucker has been harming and hurting me for 30 years, and the only reason I'm letting it happen is because everybody around me is gaslighting me and acting like it's okay. I will never, ever, ever forget when the Penny episode was on Good Times, and Penny's mom was burning her with the motherfucking either the hot comb or the iron. And I had to say to my family, well, my mom did that and y'all don't care. Because what I had to recognize and realize, and what a lot of people gonna have to recognize and realize, is that I don't care how much your family says all this bullshit about we a family and this and that. What do your family allow to happen to the most vulnerable people? What do your family allow to happen to kids in your family? What do your family allow to happen to old people? Do old people money get stolen? Do kids' innocence get stolen? Do people money get stolen? What happens to people in your family because other people just let shit happen? And are you okay with it? Now, if you like, well, okay, blah, 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 who cares? Does it matter? Or are you in the camp like, wow, this is wrong. Why are we doing it? Well, I'm going to tell you, until you start to heal and you realize that you've been not only in narcissistic, abusive relationships, but that you may have possibly participated in narcissistic, abusive scenarios and instances and relationships with other people that you claim to love in your family. This takes a lot of deep work. This takes a lot of examination. This takes a lot of willingness to look at yourself and say, yeah, these are things that I don't feel good about. These are things that I don't feel great about. These are things that I don't feel proud about. This is your opportunity to do that. However, in order for you to take yourself up on that opportunity, you have to really be willing to say, I'm going to accept the uncomfortable. You have to be willing to say that, there's these narcissistic patterns in my family of origin. You have to be willing to say, I want to move from trauma to triumph. I want to move, right? Um, from healing through leadership. And I want to move from not just like, okay, I'm figuring out this is what I need to do to heal, but then how do I help other people do that? How do I take what I've learned and really move it, right? How do I take those experiences that I've had and then how do I use those to connect those to broader themes to help other people get it, right? How do I really look at things? Um, that started me at one point and took me to another. So, for example, one of the things that helped me understand narcissistic abuse in my own life was I said, okay, how was my mom? And then I was like, well, my grandmother wasn't nothing like that. My grandmother was my advocate. She was trying to be everybody's friend all the time. And then I was like, my grandfather was just like my mom, nasty, rude, mean, right? And then I started thinking of, okay, my aunt that was like that, and blah, 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 blah. And then I started putting the thing together, right? I started putting it together, and now I get it, right? And I think about those interactions that set the stage for kind of like connecting it. And then I'm able to take those things and kind of look at, okay, then what was the relationships that I got into, boyfriends and girlfriends? And then what other patterns did I see in teachers, in caregivers, in neighbors, in other people's parents, in my schoolmates, in my teachers? What other patterns did I see where narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder really came to belief, right? And then all these different things to help me say, oh shit, yeah, this is all narcissism, right? And how these things really got to my emotional and psychological um well-being, right? And how these things really like got to me, like what do these things mean every day? And then the other part is really about like all these things that I learned from understanding the patterns, the strategies that really made sense, and I was so glad that some things I already had in place. And then the last piece is really like, okay, here's what I'm gonna tell y'all you need to do, right? How you utilize the app, right? How do you get coaching or hire me to speak or help other people who's looking to do some work here, right? How do you understand how your past is critical to your healing today and tomorrow, right? So that's the first piece, right? The second piece is really about what do you do Like you ready, you like, yeah, yeah, I already know, boom, boom, let's get it going. The second part is really about let's get it going. So it's like, okay, downloading the app, right? So you can get some of these things. Once me and you connect, then I'll send you what I feel like you need to start on. Whether it's 2 or 3 journal prompts, or whether it's, hey, here's this journal. I want you to take 6 weeks and really dive into this. Or whether it is, here's these 2 videos, watch these 2 videos and take 6 weeks and dive into this, right? And then, let's get into some of the things who people who actually they did it and they understand. So I'll break them down to you. But in addition to that, right, there's basically like what it's about in terms of the past and connecting it with what we're doing now. And then the other piece is, what do you need to do to get started so that you can really take steps towards managing your own radical change. So that's what it's about. And as always, I want to thank you for joining. I want to thank you for tuning in. And I am looking forward to us let's getting something done. Let's like doing it. Like, because the thing is, right, to recognize where you have the work to do and then to put some tactics, techniques, and tools in place to make it happen. And let me help you with that, because not only am I in the process of doing it, but I'm in the process of helping dozens of people of doing it too. I'll see y'all soon.